Hello everyone. In this video tutorial, we are going to discuss eccentrically loaded bolted joints in shear. This particular video tutorial belongs to unit number 5, which comprises study of threaded and welded joints. The relevant course outcome for this particular video tutorial is CO number 5, wherein after studying this, students will be able to design threaded and welded joints subjected to eccentric loads like jeep-headed cranes. Now, for this unit number 5, that is of threaded and welded joints, first of all, let us see what are the different options available for joining two machine parts. Whenever somebody want to join two machine parts, somebody want to hold two machine parts together or clamp two machine parts together, there are few options available like threaded joints, welded joints, riveted joints, adhesive joints, and etc. Of which, as far as our scope of syllabus is concerned, we have to study threaded joints and welded joints. Threaded screws are used mainly in mechanical engineering for two purposes. One for clamping purpose, that means joining two machine parts together or holding two machine parts together, and another purpose is of power screw applications, wherein threaded screws are used to exert the force, to sustain the load, to lift the load, or to convert rotational motion into translatory motion. As far as threaded joints for clamping purpose are concerned, these joints are facilitated with the help of screws, nut bolt, washer, assemblies, or studs. Studs can be considered as headless screws. Now, as far as our scope of syllabus is concerned, threaded screws or threaded joints used for clamping purpose, there are four different types, or there are four different type of numericals which we have to study under this category of threaded joints. Eccentrically loaded bolted joints or threaded joint in shear, wherein the line of action of the force is in the plane of the bolts and it is having eccentricity with respect to CG of the bolted system. Secondly, eccentrically loaded bolted joint, wherein the eccentric load is perpendicular to the axis of the bolt. Third category is the eccentrically loaded bolted joint, wherein the eccentric load is parallel to the axis of the bolt. And the fourth category is bolted joint subjected to tensile loads. Of these four, the very first type, eccentrically loaded bolted joint in shear, that we are going to study in this video tutorial. Now, you can see in the figure, it has been shown that a plate or a bracket is attached to a fixed support with the help of four number of bolts. And the bracket or the plate is applied with a load W, which is eccentric one. Why eccentric? Because the line of action of the force is away from the CG of the bolted system. If we consider this bolted system, bolt number 1, bolt number 2, bolt number 3, and bolt number 4, due to symmetry, their CG of this bolted system, that means CG of this four number of bolts will lie at the center. At the center, and we can predict it by symmetry, we can locate the center of gravity. And now we can realize that the line of action of the force is eccentric with respect to CG. The line of action of the force is not passing through the CG, rather it is eccentric by eccentricity E. In such cases, what will happen in such cases? How to analyze the system, that we have to study now. For such kind of arrangement, the induced stress inside the bolt will be of shearing nature. The bolts will be subjected to shearing. Here also, one can directly by judgment or by visual inspection imagine that the cross section of the bolt will be subjected to shearing stress. Shearing stress will be getting developed or induced inside these cross sections of the bolts. So bolts are subjected to shearing load, and that's why induced stress inside the bolt section will be of shearing nature. But there are two different type of shearing stresses or shearing forces getting applied to these bolts: primary shear stress, primary shear force, and secondary shear force. The primary shear force in magnitude will be given by W, the applied load, eccentrically applied load W divided by Z, where Z is the number of bolts. Now in this figure, it has been shown that the 4 bolts are used for attaching this bracket to the support, therefore Z is equal to 4. So W upon 4, this calculation will directly give you value of primary force, which will be same for each of the bolt. As far as direction of this primary force, primary shear force is concerned, this direction of primary shear force will be opposite to the direction of eccentrically applied outside force W. In this particular case, W, the is externally applied load, is in downward sense, therefore primary shear stress, primary shear force will be in upward sense. In a case, suppose W is in the upward sense, then in that case, primary force will get acted in a downward sense. So primary force will have direction opposite to direction of applied load. Here that has been shown. Primary shear force is in upward sense because externally applied load W is in downward sense. Now there is also another shear stress getting developed inside the cross section of the board due to the tendency of the bracket getting rotated about its CG. This eccentrically applied load W will try to rotate this bracket in clockwise sense. So this rotational tendency will cause shear stress or shear force getting applied on the bolts, and that shear force is called as secondary shear force. The stress developed will be secondary shear stress. This secondary shear force will be calculated as Fs is equal to C multiplied by L, where C is a constant and L is the distance of that particular bolt from the CG. L is the distance of that particular bolt from the CG. So here one can notice L1 distance of bolt number 1 from the CG, L2 distance of bolt number 2 from the CG, L3 distance of bolt number 3 from the CG. Likewise, L4 is the distance of bolt number 4 from the CG. So multiplying the constant C by L1, L2, L3, L4, etc., one can find out secondary shear forces Fs1, Fs2, Fs3, etc. Now this constant C is given by W into E divided by L1 square plus L2 square plus L3 square plus so on Lz square, where Z is the total number of bolts. W is the externally applied load. E is the eccentricity. Eccentricity is the perpendicular distance between line of action of the force and the CG. So in this figure, one can notice eccentricity as the perpendicular distance between line of action of the force and the CG. So knowing W, E and distances L1, L2, etc., one can calculate C. Multiplying C by distances L1, L2, etc., one can calculate secondary force Fs1, Fs2, etc. So all the forces are now known in magnitude. As far as the direction of secondary force is concerned, the consideration for deciding direction of secondary force is such that suppose the externally applied load W causing rotation of the bracket or rotation of the plate in clockwise sense, then secondary shear force will try to rotate the bracket in opposite sense, that means anti-clockwise sense. As shown in this figure, this applied load W will try to rotate the bracket in clockwise sense. So the secondary shear force Fs will get acted upon the board in such a direction as to cause rotation of the bracket in opposite sense, that means in anti-clockwise sense. That can be shown in this way in this figure. Now here you can see, for deciding the secondary direction of secondary shear force, one has to join the line between center of the board and the CG. A line drawn perpendicular to the line joining center of the board to the CG is the line of action of the secondary force. Now here the secondary force will be acting along this line, that can be in upward sense or in downward sense. The upward sense secondary force will cause rotation of the bracket in a clockwise sense, so that will be not done because secondary force has to be acted in such a way as to cause opposite direction of the bracket. External force is causing clockwise rotation, therefore secondary force has to act in downward sense so as to cause rotation of the bracket in opposite, that means anti-clockwise sense. So here the direction of secondary force shown is correct one. This direction or this secondary force will cause rotation of the bracket in opposite sense, anti-clockwise sense, opposite to the sense of rotation caused due to externally applied load W. For the board number 2, again for deciding direction of Fs2, direction of secondary shear force Fs2, one has to join the line between center of the board and center of gravity. A line drawn perpendicular to this line will be the line of action of the secondary force. The secondary force as shown here in upward sense will cause anticlockwise movement, anticlockwise rotation of the bracket, wherein externally applied load is causing or will cause the clockwise rotation of the bracket. Therefore, the direction as shown here for the secondary shear force is correct one, which is causing opposite direction rotation of the bracket, opposite to direction of rotation caused due to externally applied load W. Now for board number 3, again join the line between CG and board number 3. Then a line perpendicular to the line joining CG and board number 3 is the line of action of the secondary force. This downward secondary force Fs3 will cause anticlockwise rotation of the bracket opposite to the rotation of the bracket caused due to applied load. Therefore, the direction of Fs3 shown here is correct one. On the similar lines, direction of Fs4 will also be calculated. As shown here, this upward direction of Fs4 will cause anticlockwise movement, anticlockwise rotation of the bracket, and that's why this is a correct direction. Now here, collectively, I have shown directions for secondary forces at all of the boards, board number 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, in this figure, along with the secondary, I have also shown the primary forces. The angle between primary and secondary force is the angle theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, theta 4, etc. Now here, the primary as well as the secondary forces are of shearing nature. Both are of same nature, but those are not inline forces. In a case, those forces, primary and the secondary forces, are inline, then we would have directly added them. But here the forces are not inline forces, rather there is some angle between the primary and secondary force. Therefore, for finding out resultant of primary and secondary force, we have to have the vector sum of primary and secondary force. After having the vector sum, we can decide what will be the resultant shearing force as expressed by a particular bolt. So here the Fr resultant force for a particular bolt will be given by Fp square plus Fs square plus 2 times Fp Fs cos of theta. This is the relation for vector sum. Force is a vector quantity, and therefore for finding out resultant we have to add them vectorically. Vector sum to be performed between the primary and the secondary forces, and their resultant will be calculated. Here Fp is the primary force, Fs is the secondary force, and theta is the angle between primary and the secondary force. Now it has been assumed that identical bolts are used at each of the place. That means bolt number 1, 2, 3 and 4, though they are subjected to different magnitude of resultant force. You can see here theta 1 is different from theta 2. Therefore, Fr1 will be different than Fr2. So the bolts are those subjected to different type of different magnitude resultant forces, but all the at all the places, place number 1, 2, 3 and 4, we are going to use similar size identical bolt. Therefore, while designing the bolt, we have to take it to account the critically loaded bolt, the bolt which experiences maximum resultant force. And designing that critically loaded bolt, the same bolt will be utilized at all the four places or at all the Z number of places. Identical bolts are used for bolted assemblies. So here one has to find out the maximum resultant force as experienced by any of the bolt, and that bolt will be called as critically loaded bolt, and the design will be based on resultant force on the critically loaded bolt. Now one may think that here we have to calculate FR1, FR2, FR3, FR4, and then comparing these values, we have to decide what is the maximum resultant force and which one is the critically loaded bolt. But that is not actually the case. Actually, we need not require to calculate all the resultant force, but by applying some logic, we can directly predict which bolt will be critically loaded, which bolt will have maximum resultant force. So here, for deciding the critically loaded bolt, one has to apply logic as such that the bolt which is further away from the CG will be experiencing more amount of forces, and the bolt which is having lesser value of theta will have maximum value of resultant. So for deciding the critically loaded board, or for deciding the board which will experience maximum resultant force, one has to consider which bolt is further away from the center of gravity and which bolt is having lesser magnitude for the theta, where theta is the angle between primary and the secondary force. Now in this particular case, as shown in this figure, all the bolts are at same distance. Therefore, one has to decide critically loaded bolt based on the value of theta. Now, one can note that theta 2 and theta 4 are smaller than theta 1 and theta 3. Therefore, either of the theta 2 or theta 4 is experiencing, it's representing smaller angle between primary and secondary force. Due to symmetry, theta 2 and theta 4 will be same, theta 1 and theta 3 will be same in this particular case due to symmetry. But being at the same distance and all the secondary forces will be same as experienced by all the boards. Therefore, our logic will depend upon value of theta, as theta 2 or theta 4 is smaller than theta 1 and theta 3. Therefore, either of the board number 2 or board number 4 will be critically loaded board. So design will be based on value of Fr, resultant shear force as experienced by either board number 2 or board number 4. Now, induced maximum shear stress inside the critically loaded board, tau max induced, will be given by resultant force as experienced by critically loaded board, which will be denoted by Fr max because it is the maximum resultant force, maximum resultant shear force, and divided by its cross section area, rather core cross section area, core area, which is given by pi by 4 Tc square. So applied load, maximum applied load divided by minimum cross section area, which is core cross section area, that will give you maximum induced shear stress inside the board. Now this maximum induced shear stress will be equated with permissible shear stress. Permissible shear stress will be given by SSY upon factor of safety, where SSY is the shear strength. Shear strength is generally half of the yield strength. If not specified separately in the given data or in problem statement, one can assume shear strength to be half of the yield strength. So we are having with us Fr max. Fr max divided by AC is the induced maximum shear stress, and knowing SSY, we are in position to calculate tau permissible. Now, following usual procedure of equating induced stress with the permissible, if we try to equate tau max induced maximum shear stress with permissible shear stress, tau max with tau permissible, then Fr max upon AC will be equated with tau permissible. Now tau permissible will be known to us because in the problem statement they will specify value of SYT as well as value of FOS. So we are in position to calculate tau permissible, and as far as tau induced maximum is considered, Fr max is known to us. So while equating Fr max upon AC with tau permissible is known to us, Fr max is also known to us. So only unknown is AC. So here we are in position to calculate AC. AC will be given by pi by 4 DC square. AC is core cross section area, which is depending upon core diameter, pi by 4 core diameter square. So once we calculate value of AC, we will be in position to calculate DC. This is the core diameter. Now, as far as these metric threads are considered, which are used for this clamping purpose, threaded joints, there for these metric threads, their nominal diameter is given by core diameter divided by 0.84, or 1 by 84 is 1 by 0.84 is 1.19. So nominal diameter is given by 1.19 times DC. Once we calculate the core diameter, then multiplying it by 1.19 or dividing it by 0.84, we can calculate the nominal diameter, and nearby standard size of the board will be specified as the board selected for particular assembly. Suppose after calculation value of D becomes 9.12, then we have to write M10 bolts are selected. That means we have to select a nearby standard metric metric threaded board. Therefore, for such cases, we have to select M10 bolts. Suppose D is 18.75, then we have to select M20 bolts like this. Now here one point to be noted, just observe or note the difference while calculating value of D. For the power screw applications, square threads are used, for which the core diameter is given by nominal diameter minus the pitch. So nominal diameter will be DC plus the pitch. But that is not the case for the metric threads which are used for threaded joints for clamping purpose. Here the core diameter is given by DC upon 0.84 or 1.19 times DC, whereas for power screw applications D is given by DC plus P. So just please note the difference between the two formulae for calculating nominal diameter in case of power screw and nominal diameter for the screws of threaded joints. Now as far as value of angle theta, how to calculate that and how to locate CG, that will be considered while solving some numericals. One point to be noted, for a symmetric system of the bolts, by mere observation one can decide, one can locate the CG. But if the system of the bolts is not symmetric one, then there we have to follow some procedure for locating the CG. That will be discussed as and when required while solving the numericals. Also, while explaining only, I have told you that for finding out critically loaded board, you have to take it into account the furthermost bolts. Now in this case, 8 bolts are used in this assembly. Due to symmetry, we can directly locate the CG. Now, for deciding the critically loaded board, we have to apply the logic such that the furthermost board will be critically loaded. Now in this case, due to symmetry, one can note that either board number 1, board number 2, board number 5 or board number 6 are further away as compared to board number 3, 4, 7 and 8. So one of the board number 1, 2, 5 and 6 will be critically loaded. Now which one is critically loaded amongst these four? For deciding that, we have to apply the second consideration, that the board having lesser value of theta, where theta is the angle between primary and secondary force, the board having lesser value of theta will be critically loaded. Now here one can note that theta 2 and theta 5 is obviously lesser than theta 1 and theta 6. So either of board number 2 or board number 5 will be critically loaded board. Due to symmetry, the resultant force at board number 2 as well as resultant force at board number 5 will be same. So any one of these two, board number 2 or board number 5, will be declared as the critically loaded board, and resultant shear force for either board number 2 or board number 5 will be calculated, and further analysis will be based on resultant force as explained by this critically loaded boards. So this will be the judgment by which one can directly predict the critically loaded board, and no need to find out all the resultant values for all of the Z number of boards and finding out, comparing the FR values, finding out the critically loaded board. Rather, applying the logic that the furthermost board and the board having lesser amount of value for the theta will be critically loaded board. One can identify which board is critically loaded one. So this logic will be applied and the numerical will be solved. So here in this today's video tutorial, we have seen what are the threaded joints, four type of threaded joints, how to find out primary and secondary forces, their magnitude as well as their directions, how to find out resultant of primary and secondary forces, and how to design eccentrically loaded bolted joint and shear. So that's all in this particular video tutorial. Thank you.